So now, if a person has MS when it comes to detox with a detox, is it something that you continue? It's a new lifestyle that you continue making sure you're taking the detox supplementations, or
No,
is it something that you do and then once you reach on a
yeah.
certain level, you stop it and then?
Yeah, usually what happens is it needs to be done for a year. And that may sound intimidating, but people will feel amazingly well and they'll notice something shockingly different about their life, usually after about 2 weeks. Sometimes it's a few days, but usually it's within 2 weeks they'll notice, I got out of bed and I stood on one leg and put my underwear on. And they haven't done that in 5 years. Like something that will shock them. And they'll go, whoa, it's so obvious they're improving. And some people could be completely symptom-free within 3 months and look transformed. And on the surface, you'll go, hey, these people they are flying. You don't need to do anything else with them. But in reality, measure their urine and you'll see that the levels of arsenic, lead, cadmium, mercury still in the urine are sky high. Even though they could dance a jig, even though they look amazing, they feel amazing, and you think the job is done. It isn't done. They're full of metal. And it usually takes about 11 months until then you'll see a huge drop off in the volume of toxic metal that you can see in a urinary test. So having done all that for years, I don't ask people to go to the expense of doing that because I know it takes about a year and it doesn't matter how well you feel. Keep on the detox for a year.
Yeah, definitely. And then Michael, just, thanks for joining me today. And we're just going to talk today about MS and, kind of discuss your experience, how you were able to conquer MS yourself and how you've been helping people around the world to just kind of help them with their situation and conditions, given that's such a complex disease in itself. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, Antoinette. A pleasure to be here. And I would say, over the last 40 years, if you go onto Google Scholar and you put in the search terms vitamin D deficiency, multiple sclerosis, there's over 250,000 search results will pop up. So there's an immense amount of scientific research linking vitamin D deficiency with multiple sclerosis. And I tapped in on that. I have MS for 32 years, but I'm in a unique situation. I am symptom-free. I've been symptom-free for over 10 years. I swim a mile in a swimming pool 3 times a week. I'm able to walk for hours in the hills. I have no sticks. I have no wheelchairs, whereas I lost 20 years of my life to this disease from the mid-90s. Really, it became full on. And in 2007, I had to close my business and hope for the best, that things wouldn't get any worse, but they did get worse. So, when you're really between a rock and a hard place, you've got to just research, and then test on yourself to see what worked. And when I became ill, there was no Google, there was no internet. So there was nothing. I went to Florida in 1998 to visit my mum, and I had my first sun holiday from Ireland. I think maybe it might have been my first time in the sun for 25 years, because in Ireland, we have a summer, but you wouldn't be wearing that nice dress now because there's a chilly breeze even on a summer's day, So skin is rarely exposed in Ireland. And that's why the Irish, when they do go to the sun, they go crazy because they do become different people because they're full of vitamin D after a few days and they're much nicer to be around, much happier and happier in themselves too. So, I'm in a very unique situation. I didn't expect to be here. And when I started my vitamin D journey, it was Florida sunshine. I knew nothing about supplements. I knew I had terrible electric shocks in my head. They disappeared after a few days sitting on my mum's sun deck. And I knew, well, look, it had to be vitamin D. I mean, I'm in the sun. But there was there was no resource to go to. It was just common sense. What
And so
else could it be?
what were the most what were the most symptoms that you experienced personally in terms of your MS that
Yeah,
that pushed
look,
you to wanting to know more and understanding more, and how did you navigate it to want to find a way to help others?
yeah. Well, first of all, I never intended to help out others. My entire journey was personal salvation. I never gave a second thought to anybody else. It was, could I survive this?
Yeah.
And I didn't know that all of these nuggets of information about brands of fish oils, brands of, the whole thing was was a journey of self-discovery. It wasn't about helping other people. That was not on the agenda. Like as a young man, my human experience was one of pleasure. I'd never been sick. So everything about the human body was to do about pleasure. Playing tennis was a pleasure. Having a shower with soap was a pleasure. Eating beautiful food was a pleasure. Walking in the hills was a pleasure. Everything was a pleasure. My
So
body,
the things we take for granted, it
yeah,
became a pleasure for you.
I had a state of well-being that I completely took for granted. The only thing that would knock me out of that would be, I'm not a big, my mum and dad never drank alcohol, which makes them unusual for Irish people. So when you grow up in a house where people don't drink alcohol, you don't drink alcohol. So it's like it's not really on the radar, you know. So when you would go out with friends, there was a lot of social pressure growing up to drink alcohol. So I would drink alcohol, and the following day, you feel like death, and you. I don't know why people do it. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But that was my only experience of my body not being a pleasure mechanism. And it was very limited. I'd no disease. I'd never been sick. Yeah, I'd played some rugby. I got a concussion. Yeah, I fell off the back of a moped once. But these were all transitory injuries. I was essentially a human being that was revved up on well-being and good health. And then all of a sudden, I started to experience these shocking waves of not even diabolical fatigue, but weakness, to the point where you'd feel you were going to black out.
Wow.
So in the 90s, there was this thing called ME, or chronic yuppie flu, they were calling it, people with inexplicable bouts of fatigue. And I was labeled into that category. It was only later on when I lost the sight in my right eye and I woke up blind in my right eye that the dots were beginning to be joined. Optic neuritis, chronic fatigue, and then a doctor asks you a few questions, you know, frequency of urination. Do you get out of bed at night to pee? Yes, 10 times, like an old man. Like, inexplicable for a young man to be experiencing these things. And when the dots are joined, it's pretty obvious it's multiple sclerosis. And then things just go from bad to worse. And I would say that I can remember going in for a blood result to pick it up on September the 11th for the Twin Towers collapse, because I can remember that was on the telly in the waiting room. Wow. And I felt that day that I was going to die. I felt so ill, and they handed me my blood results and said everything's normal. And I was so ill, I could have needed a stretcher that day. So the normal way for my body to feel would be if you were caught in a concussion blast from an explosion of a rocket, and you were picked up and pushed against a concrete wall at high velocity, and you were left shaking internally in your body in a state of shock. And I was in that situation mixed with, you could say, the worst jet lag you've ever had in your life. If you flew from LA to Dublin and you didn't sleep for 24 hours, it's that weird feeling in your body of sleep deprivation. I entered into that and I stayed there for 10 years. So then you could add in, oh yeah, my legs going from under me in the supermarket, like weak legs, balance, walking, and then suddenly you felt like you were on the deck of a ship and the boat is being tossed around in the sea, but you're not. You're in a supermarket.
Right.
So it was bizarre. Like the thing about multiple sclerosis, it can throw at you at the total opposite of what the human body is designed to be. And it's unprecedented. Healthy people have no idea what's coming. And you think things can't get any worse, and they get much worse. But in ways that you can't conceive of, because it's never happened to you before. It is about brain damage. It is about spinal cord damage. So essentially, the day I came back from Orlando, Florida, having been sick for many years, I was symptom free after 2 weeks in the Florida sunshine. And
So
I
was
mean,
that what were you free from the disease because of the exposure of the sun, or is there
yes, yeah.
treatment that you got?
No, this was my first hint that my only defense against this disease was vitamin D. Okay, so when you have electric shocks in your head, you don't feel much like chatting to people. Like you are destroyed. You can't have a conversation. You have these things going on in your head. It's a nightmare. Everything gone within, I don't know, a few days, a week. I can't remember now. And when I came back to Ireland, it was as if I'd never been sick at all for all those years. I was floating in air. I could walk through walls. It was ridiculous. And you'd think, maybe I'm mad. Maybe I'm mentally ill. I mean, am I just imagining this? Because like, it doesn't make sense. And then suddenly, as the vitamin D comes down in your blood from living in Dublin, all of a sudden, these weird feelings start to come up in your body again. So that's when I went to experiment with vitamin D supplementation. And it took, at that stage, medical science was suggesting very low doses, 400 IU of vitamin D, which did nothing for me. So I started on 12,000 IU, and they turned off the electric shocks because I was trying to find a supplement that would mimic the effects of being in Orlando, Florida. And that was it. And once I was able to turn off the electric shocks, I stayed on 12,000 IU a day for many years. And I never thought of going up any higher, because then the internet arrived. And when you started looking on the internet, it's saying kidney failure, high doses of vitamin D, kidney failure. You see it everywhere. Right. So I don't want kidney failure. So I'm going, okay. So I'm researching diets instead. And there's a multitude of people doing really well on the paleo diet against autoimmune disease. So I embraced it. How did I feel? I felt great.
And do you combine your paleo diet with your
absolutely? I mean, I will never be seduced by a cream bun, by a chocolate croissant. Like, you can forget it. Like, I don't care how good you look, how beautiful you smell. I am not touching you, because when I eat those foods, the impact on my well-being, it's like all I want is to feel good, to be happy, to be well. And those foods I call wheelchair foods. So they're not on my radar. I'm addicted to life. So I don't want that. It's for other people who don't have these problems, it's just a bun. But no, if you have MS, it's not just a bun, because
so then once you implement that type of lifestyle, meaning the food, the actual food, the authentic food, because that's what I do most of the time. And then also the supplementation that goes with that to elevate your vitamin D, obviously, in your body. Then that's like, it's your lifetime. If your lifestyle, like,
it is,
cannot just switch from this one to the other, because it does affect your whole overall health, and it can take you back to where you were. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It's what I have after many years of trial and error. I think from an MS perspective, the first words out of doctor's mouth to anybody with MS should be all about the impact of, there's two classes of foods, dairy and grain. And they cannot have any place in your life. If they do, the consequences are catastrophic. Now, we could go in and talk about why that is. It doesn't matter why it is. It is. So, if you want to embrace the success of MS patients who have gone before you and who didn't have the access to the information that we have today about vitamin D, They mainly use diet. And what did they do? They used the paleo diet. And how did they do? Better than anybody on drugs. That's how they did.
Right.
So we know that that's part, but my disease was far too aggressive. It started to progress even though I was on the paleo, even though I was taking 12,000 IU of vitamin D a day. My symptoms became unbearable. Like I was so weak that to sit in a chair and talk, and it's inconceivable to somebody who's never been ill, but to actually sit in a chair was too exhausting. You'd have to lie flat.
Wow.
It's just, you didn't have the body strength to just to sit in a chair. Like you could do it for half an hour, but then and what you're heading towards is permanent disability. When you go into that, it's how are you comfortable, Michael? Oh, I'm really comfortable lying in bed flat for 7 hours from 11 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. But hold on a second, Michael, that's not a life.
Yeah, definitely. Nobody wants that life.
That's not a life. Like,
Yeah.
you might be comfortable, but that's not a life. Like, what the hell, So then it's a continuous. So then eventually, after years of experimentation, I discover in 2015 the work of a neurologist, a pioneering neurologist, Dr. Cicero Coimbra, and he was based in Brazil, and he was a complete maverick in the space, and he was using high doses of vitamin D to halt and reverse multiple sclerosis. And so I started to take much higher doses because I knew it was safe to do so if you were on a dairy-free diet, because there was no risk to your kidneys.
Oh, so the dairy is the one that causes a problem in terms of kidneys with the high dose vitamin D?
With high dose vitamin D, because as soon as you go above 100 mg blood level of vitamin D, you super absorb calcium from food, from your diet.
Oh.
And it's like having a Dyson vacuum cleaner inside you. If you're consuming dairy, you're going to take in way too much calcium. And in the short term, that's not a problem. But in the long term, that's going to cause kidney failure. So it's highly toxic calcium in high quantities to your kidneys. The rest of the body can deal with it, but not your kidneys. And so basically to exclude that probability, you have no choice. Like you've got to get rid of milk, cheese, and yogurt for sure.
Right.
Butter, strangely enough, doesn't have any calcium. So you can continue with butter if you want to. I don't. So, so then when I had discovered prior to Dr. Coimbra's work that different brands of vitamin D worked, and most brands of vitamin D did not work. They just made you feel kind of dopey, or all of your symptoms were worse. So I'd say I went, maybe I could have tested 200, 150. I've lost count of brands of vitamin D. But today I only have 4 brands of vitamin D that I work with my clients. And there is no one brand of vitamin D that works for everybody. There is no one dose of vitamin D that works for everybody. You have to do the work to find that out. And when you do, it's very worthwhile because you can halt disease progression. And it's what has happened with me is not a unique experience. This can be replicated again and again and again. So Dr. Coimbra, his approach, he claims that there's a one-size-fits-all approach, that any brand of vitamin D will work on any person, and that the starting dose is 1,000 IU per kilo of body weight. I haven't found that to be correct. In my clinical experience, I find that there is no bioequivalence of vitamin D brands. It's not like a pharmaceutical. Paracetamol is paracetamol in London, Paris, New York, Moscow.
Right.
Because it's all regulated, whereas brands of vitamin D, magnesium, omega-3s, there's no regulation.
That's correct.
And most of these products that you buy, you'll find they give no clinical benefit to people. And this is a shock because you're reading all this science about how amazing and anti-inflammatory, omega-3 is. But when you give it to people, they get no benefit. So
I'm glad you really mentioned that, because that's another aspect of really to emphasize out there, that the information we get, or even the supplements that we get, we need to to evaluate ourselves and also pay attention to where we're getting it from. because not all qualities are equal. It's not because it's rich in vitamin D that necessary. That's why having somebody who knows what they're doing is something very helpful in terms of getting the optimal advantage or results the person's looking for.
To be honest, it's a maze and a minefield. And you don't want to come across to people as being some sort of ogre with a cynic, but there's no way of putting it. When you're dealing with an unforgiving disease like multiple sclerosis, I mean, this is a merciless disease. So you can't be playing games. You have to know that the tools that you're using to fight it are the genuine thing. It was very frustrating for me. It took years to figure out, because in my naivety, it never once crossed my mind that these nutritional companies were ripoffs. It never crossed my mind. Because I was just a naive person who thought, hey, they're selling these products. It must contain what it says on the label.
Right.
I was just naive. And then eventually, when you find a product that works, and when that product works on a very sick human being, and then another one, and another one, and it's nothing to do with price. Like it's not because it's twice the price of any other product. No, it's from an ethically minded manufacturer.
Amen.
And there are ethically minded manufacturers out there. They don't get any credit from anybody or anything.
Yes.
And they're making the real thing, the real probiotic, the real fish oil, and delivering it to people at a fair price. It's the way that their heart and soul works in life. They get no credit for it, but they should be carried through the streets on people's shoulders and applauded for what they do. But nobody knows, really. Very few. If you're in the trade, eventually, you'll learn. But essentially, the core defense against MS is vitamin D and medical grade magnesium. And the magnesium is very important. And there was a lady back in the
Why is magnesium very important? Why is it important for people to really understand that they need to put that magnesium in consideration?
Well, for two reasons, really. Number one, magnesium transports vitamin D around the body. And when you're deficient, the vitamin D doesn't go anywhere. Secondly, magnesium converts vitamin D from inactive to active. So when people get their vitamin D levels measured, they get this measurement for inactive vitamin D, but they look at it and go, oh, look, I have a very healthy level of vitamin D, I'm fine. But that, if you've an autoimmune disease, by definition, autoimmune disease means you've got a triple failure of polymorphic changes in your genetics. And one of them is you don't convert all the available vitamin D in your blood. You can't convert it. So it's like having a beautiful ship or a beautiful car with no gas. It can't go anywhere.
Right.
So it's no good to you if it's in the front, driveway. It's only nice if that beautiful machine is on the road and you can enjoy it,
Exactly.
So magnesium converts vitamin D from inactive to active, and it transports vitamin D around the body. But there's a wide range of other things, in fairness, magnesium does, like it boosts testosterone levels. And higher testosterone levels are linked to less MS activity. And that's why there's many more women with MS than men. So you'll also find a lot of people who lift weights with MS. They do much better than people who don't lift weights.
So the muscles do help. The building of muscles is something that helps in that situation? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like exercise, going for a walk doesn't do anything for MS. It's good for your health, but to lift a weight, that increases testosterone. That's totally different. When it's a weight-bearing exercise, a squat, a biceps curl, they cause the production of testosterone in men and in women. And what that does is, again and again and again, every study shows the same thing. Less disability, less paralysis, less tingling, less numbness, less brain damage.
Wow.
And then elevated testosterone also dusts off insulin resistance. So you have much healthier blood glucose levels if you have higher levels of testosterone. And that's also very important in MS. And study after study shows people with unhealthy, insulin resistance, unhealthy blood glucose levels, they're more paralyzed. So magnesium is a critical nutrient. And then people are, there's 8 types of magnesium, and you have to research them and find out which ones work in a clinical situation. And I was taking brands of magnesium for years and never noticed any benefit. And then I came across the work of Dr. Carolyn Dean, an American lady from the 1980s. She wrote this book, The Magnesium Miracle. And she was saying, look, most of the supplements out there, they're good for nothing. So she started to sell her own picoionic magnesium chloride. And look, this isn't today or yesterday. This was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And she was selling that product at, I think, $40 or $50 a bottle for liquid picoionic. That's expensive today, but it was really expensive 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I just out of curiosity ordered a bottle from this lady because she really knew what she was talking about. And was it hype or was it fact? Only one way to find out. Order a bottle and find out. Wow. When I took that stuff, tingling disappeared out of my feet. Sensations in my hands and feet. I slept better. I woke up feeling refreshed. Brain fog eased. There was no way I was taking any other magnesium after I was introduced to her product. Now, she's an elderly lady today. Somebody else has taken over the company. The product isn't as good, but there's other companies producing picoionic magnesium chloride today. And there's been other developments as well in magnesium with other companies. So, so basically magnesium and the disease itself, multiple sclerosis, it devours magnesium. So it increases MS patients' needs for magnesium. And then when you take vitamin D, because it needs it to be transported and converted, you have to have a very healthy level on a daily supplementary basis. Otherwise, you'll become deficient in magnesium.
Yeah. And then, so in terms of your solutions and how it came to help you in your daily activity. So let's say there's somebody out there, they're just trying to find other alternative to the disease that have been suffering for many years, because there are people who've had it for so many years. Does it matter when the person had it,
Yeah.
and getting the result that you want to get, or is it something that is dependent on how long you've had it to get the result you want to get?
Yeah.
And this alternative way of health, putting it that way.
Okay. Well, logic would tell you, Antoinette, logic would, because whenever anybody asks me that question, I laugh inside, because that's what I do when I meet people who've had MS for 20 years and have 2 legs that are like concrete blocks, and they're absolutely destroyed human beings. And you give them, that's when you find the correct brand of vitamin D. Okay, so you need to test an individual on a testing dose of vitamin D. When it's right, the weirdest thing is people get instant relief, and it can have you mystified. I call it the hand of God effect, because it makes no sense. How can a person so ill for so long notice that their legs feel better, their head is clearer, they're crippling heavy, I call it, people will call it the lead cloak that is put on people. It's like being a diver. You dive under the surface and then your body is compressed with the pressure of the water to equalize your breathing and pop out your ears, or your head starts to, pressure in. Swimmers will know this. And you can be a good swimmer but if you're not a good diver, you're never able to swim down. Okay. Oh, you can swim on the surface all you like, but it takes a special skill to go down. And basically, you need to know about breathing and compression and affecting your ears. So when you see these instantaneous, it's so nice to see it, and it happens regularly. But so the weird thing about what I do is there's no stage of disease that you can't still step in and halt progression. Even people in wheelchairs, it's not a question that you're going to get their limbs back, but their limbs aren't going to be in spasm and spasticity day and night, that
Yes.
they can't sleep, they have continuous pain, their stomachs are destroyed with pain meds, etc. Vitamin D can step in and take all of that away. Their legs mightn't work, but they're no longer giving them any pain. And then they're not racked with infections, and you can be endless series of UTIs. So people at an end are very badly damaged by MS. Strangely enough, you can still intervene and help
Wow,
people
from the
at
end
that
when
level.
somebody's at the extremity,
Yeah.
you come in and start changing things around.
Yeah, it's the strangest thing. And so, because when I started this work, I was all intimidated. I preferred to work with people that were newly diagnosed, like within the last 4 years, because basically usually about 8 out of 10 symptoms are gone, no more relapses, fatigue is gone. It's always fatigue and energy that just changes immediately. That's when you know you've got the patient. It's
Yeah.
always that one. If you can get rid of fatigue and low well-being levels of well-being, then all the other dominoes tend to fall in newly diagnosed people. And then they can go for an MRI and see their lesions are gone, etc., etc. I'm in this job for 10 years, and I don't get emergency phone calls from people who've had relapses. Now, if you were to say that to a neurologist, they would just look at you like you had two noses. Like, they have people rushing into hospital with relapses. It's a daily event.
Mm-hmm.
But with vitamin D and diet, and also heavy metal decontamination,
that's a very good point you just mentioned, the toxicity, the heavy metals.
Yeah. So
we are going into MS and toxicity. Like, tell me a little bit more. Tell our viewers a little bit more about the importance of toxins in their body, because we are constantly exposed to toxins in our daily life. I cannot not only imagine those people who actually have this, chronic disease like MS.
Yeah, so look, it's my hypothesis on multiple sclerosis is that it is caused by a long-term deficiency of vitamin D deep inside the brain and in other parts of the body, and heavy metal poisoning, usually aluminium and usually mercury, typically from vaccines, typically from childhood vaccines, because that's where these metals are injected into us. And when you look at the rates of MS and autoimmune disease in unvaccinated children and adults, look, it barely is mentioned. It barely happens at all. When you look at the Amish community, where none of those Amish kids are vaccinated, and there's yet to be a single sudden infant death. They don't get leukemia, they don't have brain tumors, and not a single case of autism. Now,
how about the day-to-day, how about the day-to-day toxicity, like from the food, the sprays, the pesticides, and all?
Well, look, I mean,
are they emphasizing it more? Because vaccines, again, in some situation they have their place, in some other situation they do not. I know every person, depending on where a person sits, that's just how things are. How would you emphasize in terms of somebody who's current and paying attention, or they may be saying that, this is a possibility that you have this disease? Do you go ahead and get tested with heavy metal testing? Is that something you encourage for somebody who has MS to go and do heavy metal testing and see what the levels are in their vitamin D and just start from there?
I used to do all that.
Oh.
And then I just stopped, because everybody had heavy metals. You give a urine sample and there is nothing in the urine, no aluminium, no mercury, and then you give a heavy metal detox product for 5 days in a row, and it will mobilize metal from within the body into the blood, where it will be excreted in urine. And then you see this shocking change. It goes from no heavy metals to, my God.
Oh, that's new. So you can test a heavy metal testing at this point in time if I'm not taking any detox and be negative, but the moment I'll take it, it's going to be positive.
Yeah, because their heavy metals don't circulate in the blood. They're called heavy for a reason. They stick like porridge to a pot. They go into the depths of your organs. They go into the depths of your bones. They don't circulate in blood. They stick like glue inside glands and organs. And, that's where I remember this lady came to me years ago. She'd 5 miscarriages in a row. And and they said she'd never have a baby. And I said, well, I can I see you inside your mouth, please? And she had wall-to-wall amalgam mercury dental fillings. And she was about 24 years of age. And they went in when she was 11, which is most of her life. And I said, look, I can't do anything for you, but what I recommend you do is you go to a holistic dentist and you have those fillings replaced with white composite material safely, not with somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. And then let's see what happens. So she got pregnant and she went full term and she had one baby, then she had a second baby and she has 3 babies. Okay. So that was with no, and I would say that over the years, which is 20, 25 years, I was an acupuncturist and a nutritionist. And acupuncture is very useful, so is nutritional medicine. But there's loads of things that are a total mystery, and nobody knows the answer. And I would always say to people, can I see inside your mouth? If they have amalgam mercury dental fillings, I would always say, look, why don't you just get them out and see what happens to this mystery problem, whether it's depression or insomnia. And it's true to say, 50% of those people were cured within a month with no heavy metal detox, just by having their fillings replaced. So that opened my mind to the whole subject of heavy metal poisoning very early on. And in 1998, I had my fillings replaced. And prior to that, from 1991 to 1998, I was losing the use of my left arm intermittently 5 to 10 times a week for 2 to 3 minutes at a time. And after I had my fillings replaced, within 1 month, I never lost the use of my left arm again, ever, not even for a moment. So that leaves a huge impression. I then started on a journey of looking for products that would remove this metal from inside human beings. Because it was tantalizing. Like, if people did so well just from getting the fillings out, what if you could remove the metal that's already gone into them?
Into the body, yes.
Ooh, like, that was tantalizing. So basically, you name a product, you go online, and I will have bought it in the United States, tested it on clients, tested it on myself, and eventually I found about 4 amazing nanozeolites and 1 alginate-based product that I call them my products of human transformation. They really do pull out, they can do the most destroyed humans, they help. Because when diet doesn't help, when nutritional supplementation doesn't help, and there are loads of people in that category.
Yeah.
Sadly, it's true. Like, they eat the healthiest food, they live like monks, and they don't drink beer, they don't smoke, and they are so ill. And you sort out their vitamin D, you correct their status with omega-3s, it doesn't help, nothing helps. And then so heavy metal detox has a huge role as well, and particularly in multiple sclerosis, because the symptoms of aluminium poisoning are identical to the symptoms of multiple sclerosis. And in the pharmaceutical industry, when they want to induce multiple sclerosis, a model of multiple sclerosis in mice to test new pharmaceutical meds for MS, they inject aluminium into the brain of mice. So to mimic the disease of multiple sclerosis. So I see again and again and again, neurological symptoms improve from heavy metal decontamination that people have thought for 20 years that they were MS symptoms, and they weren't.
So now, if a person has MS, when it comes to detox, with a detox, is it something that you continue? It's a new lifestyle that to continue making sure you're taking the detox supplementations,
no,
or is it something that you do and then once you reach on a set level, you stop it and then?
Yeah, usually what happens is it needs to be done for a year, and that may sound intimidating, but people will feel amazingly well, and they'll notice something shockingly different about their life, usually after about 2 weeks. Sometimes it's a few days, but usually it's within 2 weeks they'll notice, I got out of bed and I stood on one leg and put my underwear on, and they haven't done that in 5 years. Like, something that will shock them. and they'll go, whoa, it's so obvious they're improving. And some people could be completely symptom-free within 3 months and look transformed. And on the surface, you'll go, hey, these people they are flying. You don't need to do anything else with them. But in reality, measure their urine and you'll see that the levels of arsenic, lead, cadmium, mercury still in the urine are sky high, even though they could dance a jig, even though they look amazing, they feel amazing, and you think the job is done. It isn't done. They're full of metal. And it usually takes about 11 months until then you'll see a huge drop off in the volume of toxic metal that you can see in a urinary test. So having done all that for years, I don't ask people to go to the expense of doing that, because I know it takes about a year, and it doesn't matter how well you feel. Keep on the detox for a year.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So it basically, in terms of toxins, in terms of the disease in itself, the most essential part is that vitamin D is very key, magnesium included, magnesium, and making sure that you're taking the toxins out that have accumulated. And it could be also the cause, or anticipating to the cause of that
yes,
in the first place.
Yeah, especially when, vitamin D is converted in the liver and the intestines and the kidneys. What if you've got a lot of aluminium or mercury there? Well, that's not going to help conversion of vitamin D, is it? And what you see again and again is people may be symptom-free with, say, 60 to 80,000 IU of vitamin D. It is a lot. But hey, if they're symptom-free, that's all we're interested in. But then 6 months later, they feel ill on 60 to 80,000 IU of vitamin D. They take it, and instead of feeling amazing, they feel awful. What's happened is their body has become so clean, and it's now super efficient at converting vitamin D in the kidneys, the liver, and now you drop the dose. Drop the dose, 20,000 less. How do you feel? Oh, Michael, fantastic. There you go. And the less vitamin D you need, the better, because it's the safer for your kidneys in the long term. So I haven't had a case of calcium poisoning in since 2016, since I moved away from the Coimbra protocol way of doing things, which was their answer to everything was more vitamin D. And I ended up with about 5 or 6 cases of calcium poisoning. And it scared me so much. I went, I am not in this business for that. There's got to be a different way.
Right.
And there is a different way. You don't need to put people at any risk. And the Coimbra people talk about, oh, you have to get worse before you get better. No, you don't. You just get better. Listen to the body. Listen to the body. The body knows it has its own intelligence.
You just put it out, listening to because that's another part where I wanted to mention a little bit more. It's just listening to in terms of emotions, because this is something that not only you've been struggling to just do the basics needs of every day, that a person like myself, I don't have the condition, or is that something I've experienced in the past. Like sometimes I may take for granted, just I wake up, I put on my clothes, I just move on, I can drink, I can, I'm just thinking things are just coming straight. I'm not forgetting every word I said. And because I've had, some past people I worked with, but I'm not specialized in MS particularly. So that's why I need an expert to come and just give us a little bit more information. When it comes to health and wellness, it's just, I realize that people with that type of a disease, their memory is so short, and it hits their emotional tremendously, and they kind of judge themselves tremendously. How would you kind of emphasize that? Now we're talking about supplements, what to eat, and of course we're not going to even talk about hydration, because it's very key, because those toxins needs to go out. But the emotional part, how that support of emotions do you implement? Because if obviously when they see the results, they feel much better, they feel their confidence is higher, but what is that emotional part? Because they go through a lot of mood swing, stress, and self-judgment of like, oh my God, I don't love myself anymore. Like, how do you implement that in your practice and helping people around the world?
Yeah. Look, it's I think the best psychological therapy is when you get your body back. And you also get your mind back, because you know that your mind is in a dangerous place when you have MS. And you know it fluctuates. You know, you can go in and out of serious depressions, social withdrawal, you lose friends, you lose family. This is a merciless beast of a disease.
Yeah.
And look, when I got out of it, and it was December 2015, and I took my first high dose of vitamin D after I discovered an interview with Dr. Coimbra on YouTube. And I was already on the paleo diet. So I said, oh, well, I'm fine. I don't have to worry about calcium issues. I don't eat dairy. So, okay, here goes 75,000 IU of vitamin D. And it was like a metaphysical experience. That day, my life changed.
Wow.
I would feel the presence of death in my body and surrounding me for years. It was almost like a physical presence, and I can't describe it. And that day, it's gone. And you know, when you've gone to bed at night and you're tortured and you've got electric shocks, sweating, all that you can't, you're twisting, you're turning, it's going to bed at night is a nightmare with MS. It's not like other people go to bed to rest. We go to bed to endure. And it's unimaginable. And then suddenly you're well. And suddenly you put your head on your pillow.
Wow.
And suddenly there's nothing in your body, only peace. And it's almost like in here, Silent Night being sung. You know, it's like that hymn. It's a metaphysical experience. Personally, for many weeks, I felt euphoric. And for many weeks, I felt like I needed a counselor. But not to discuss grieving or loss, but to discuss, I cannot believe I am so well. Help me deal with this, because it's just too much. I can't believe it. I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm human again. So people get their heads around that their own way. It's like, as a lady said to me the other day, I've gone from being afraid to leave the house to I'm walking outside with no sticks. I'm driving the car. I'm going to the supermarket. I'm super confident. I'm like the old me. You hear this phrase again, because look, the old you is there once it has the vitamin D and pull a few metals out. And, you know, it's amazing that old you can be still in there. You know, you just need to sort of catch it on a hook like a fish and reel it in, you know. So, yeah, so I enjoy that aspect of when people get there, I give plenty of advice about, hey, now, do you have a different value in life? When you see a dancer on TV, when you see a football being kicked, when you see that, you look at the human body with such admiration, with such love, because you've got your life back. And it's like being branded like a slave. The disease brands you. You will be wounded and scarred for life. When you've got away with it, as I have got away with it, I have a sense of love for the human body. Other people can never even, they don't know what they're talking about.
100%. Experience, and you to have lived it. I cannot express it.
And hence walking by the cakes and the beautiful cakes that smell so good that want to seduce you. You know, I laugh at them because I want to be happy. I don't want to taste in my mouth for 2 seconds that's a bun. I want a beautiful steak, some fish, vegetables. I mean, these are the foods of life. And it's not about temporary tastes for the mouth. It's about well-being. And I have to say, kind of like mild euphoria. Like, I mean, there's no other way to put it. Like, to be able to head off. I did a swim yesterday, a mile, 60 lengths in a pool.
Wow.
And, you know, it's amazing. Like, it's amazing.
Appreciation, it's been beyond appreciation.
It is. People, when you look at people and they don't understand that what they're doing is going to cause them an awful lot of pain and suffering, and they'll only discover that when they're admitted to a hospital. And it's all so unnecessary. If people were educated in school about what it actually means to be ill, they would dedicate their life to never being ill and never want to see a doctor. And they would eat what's right and do what's right and stay healthy and just love life, you know?
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was very, very, very helpful. And thank you for taking a lot of your time to really share with the world and whoever is going to be listening this message. I just have one question, because I really do. I think sharing is caring. And this is really what we are doing. And this is what it's all about. It's sharing. You just shared your journey. You shared how you were able to conquer it and how you help people around the world to conquer this condition. You know, where there's a problem, there's always a solution. I do believe that. It's just meeting the right person or the right people and connecting with those people on a personal level, even a spiritual level, you know, because humans, we're above and beyond. But if it was that one advice that you can give to somebody who's going through this MS disease, multiple sclerosis disease, what would you tell them? What is the one thing from your past experience, or maybe two things, because this is such complex? If there's one thing you can tell them now, what would be that message for them? Because again, sharing is caring. What would be that message you give them?
Well, the single most important subject for anybody with multiple sclerosis, indeed, the single most important subject for any human being, is actually vitamin D, if you want health in your life, because a deficiency of no other vitamin is associated with the destruction of human life. We're talking breast cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, sepsis, schizophrenia, psychosis, pancreatic cancer, 80% of breast cancers, bowel cancer, uterine, cervical, prostate. So heart disease, elevated blood pressure, low libido. Like, vitamin D is the God vitamin. It's about life. We come from Africa. We come from Equatorial Africa. Okay, we might have moved to places where we needed to get rid of black skin, but we are all from Africa. Humans are from Africa. And we've been there for a long time, buck naked, walking around the place, soaking up that sun. And while we're in the light, we're healthy.
Yeah. So we need the light, basically.
Yeah, when we're in the light,
we need the sunshine.
Yeah. So it's, you know, it's you just need to look at, like, my people, the Irish, and, you know, when you see how I remember being on a holiday, the clutch went in the car, and we were in the south of France when I was a kid, and it was a type of car they didn't have in France. And so my mum and dad had to ask my Uncle Michael to come over from Tipperary with a clutch for this Vauxhall car. And I went, oh no, Uncle Michael's coming on holiday. He is such a bore. He is the most boring man. Like, he's going to put a downer on everything. And when he came 2 days on the beach, Uncle Michael was the life and soul of the party. Oh my God. And I was looking at him like, brain transplant. Where did he come from? Who is this guy? He was a lovely man.
So the joy, the sun.
He'd never taken his shirt off. Mood alterer, you know?
Yes, mood alterer.
Yeah,
indeed.
so it's vitamin D this is the master subject. You master that. That's what I do, is I impart a skill for life. It's taken me 20 years to understand this subject. It's a complex subject. The most rewarding subject in life for an MS patient is to know which brand of vitamin D clicks with your biology, what dose, how might that dose fluctuate at various seasons, how do you compensate? It's about learning everything. Could you do what I do? Yeah, you could. If you spent 20 years at it, you probably learned just what I learned. But there's no point. Like, just get somebody to teach you. And that's why I work with people, I engage with people in a strange way. It's 3 Zooms per week for 4 weeks it takes me. I didn't have that idea fall out of the heavens. That's what it takes to test magnesiums, test vitamin Ds, introduce vitamin B2, which also activates vitamin D. There's all these nuances, and you can't rush them. You need to be a hand holder for patients. And you need to make sure no harm comes to them, because all of these supplements can trigger inflammation in a person who's poisoned. And that's not what you want. They're already sick enough as it is. So, in short answer is, to get back to that, is focus on vitamin D. It is the vitamin of life. It is the God vitamin as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, it's a certain elegance about that, light, God, like, it isn't it obvious, you know?
Yeah, so basically focus on vitamin D and make sure that you get somebody who truly understands, who can actually, if there's any diverse reaction that happens,
Yeah, and if you're
so,
look, for people that don't have MS, and just, hey, look, forget about all this stuff about the sun being bad for you. The sun is medicine. It's medicine. You need sun exposure, not sunburn, sun exposure. Okay, and all those sunscreens have aluminium in them. So you need to go onto Amazon and go toxic free sunscreen. And the same with deodorant, no aluminium. You put aluminium on the skin, it goes into your bloodstream. If you put aluminium into a sandwich, 90% will be blocked from entering your bloodstream, because your digestive system will block metals that are in food from entering your body. But rub them on the skin, they go straight in.
Wow.
So yeah. So it's, and you know, I have clients say, well, I use this sun factor. They went a day without urinating. That's a sign of kidney failure. From an SPF 50 with aluminium, and then they buy one with with aluminium, and any problems with kidney producing urine? None at all. Listen, lovely talking to you. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you so much, and thanks for sharing. And I hope we'll keep it going. And thank you again for our viewers. Thanks, you know, for more information. You can see more information. I'll add it down below. Then you can just have that.
If you could, a link to my Facebook group where they can all
very easy, so they can see other people you worked with.
There's hundreds of people, and they all post their experiences.
They express their experience, indeed. Also, thank you very much, and have
pleasure. Take care of yourself. Bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye bye.